castle appears, virgins scream, and what started as a box office disaster became the longest-running theatrical release in film history. These are 20 secrets about the Rocky Horror Picture Show hidden for decades. And the bonus? The prop that audiences still throw at screens 50 years later. Number 20. The film that died on opening night.
You've seen all kinds of movies, but you've never seen anything like the Rocky Horror.
Say! Do one of you guys know how to Madison?
The Rocky Horror Picture Show wasn't a cult classic on day one. It was a bomb, a complete unmitigated disaster. When it premiered in September 1975 at the Westwood Theater in Los Angeles, 8 people showed up. 8. For opening night. By the second week, theaters were empty. Critics savaged it. Tasteless, incomprehensible, unwatchable trash. Variety called it a certain flop. Studio executives at Fox panicked, pulling it from major markets within weeks. The film lost money immediately, disappeared from theaters faster than most horror movies. Tim Curry later said, "The premiere felt like a funeral. The cast sat in the theater watching their careers implode on screen." Susan Sarandon left early, too depressed to watch. Richard O'Brien, who wrote the original stage show, thought he'd killed his own creation. Fox considered burying the film entirely, writing off the loss, pretending it never happened. But then something strange occurred. In Minneapolis, a late-night programmer named Kim Fowley decided to screen it at midnight as a joke. College students showed up drunk and loved it. Word spread. More midnight screenings, bigger crowds. And slowly, city by city, theater by theater, Rocky Horror came back from the dead. Not as mainstream entertainment, but as something weirder, more subversive. A film that failed during the day but thrived after midnight. Because sometimes the best art doesn't succeed on its own terms. It creates entirely new ones. Number 19. Tim Curry. Almost wasn't Frankenfurter.
I referred only to Magenta and myself. I'm sorry, however, if you found my words misleading. But you see...
Say something.
Say! Do one of you guys know how to Madison?
Tim Curry owned Frankenfurter on stage in London. He created the role, perfected it, made it legendary. But when filming began, producers wanted someone else. Someone famous, someone bankable, someone who could sell tickets. They offered it to Mick Jagger. He was interested, seriously considered it, loved the music and the outrageousness. But his manager said no. Too risky, too weird, wrong for his image. Then they approached David Bowie. He was perfect, androgynous, theatrical, musically brilliant. Bowie read the script, loved it, but was committed to filming the man who fell to earth and couldn't do both. Producers kept searching. Names were thrown around. Glam rockers, theater actors, anyone with the right energy. Meanwhile, Tim Curry was in panic mode. This was his role, his creation, his life. He'd poured everything into Frankenfurter on stage. But film and theater are different animals. Studios wanted star power. Finally, director Jim Sharman fought back. He told producers Curry was non-negotiable. Nobody else understood Frank's vulnerability, his loneliness, his desperate need to be adored. Stars could play the sexuality. Only Curry could play the sadness underneath. Producers reluctantly agreed, gambling on an unknown. And Curry delivered. He didn't just play Frankenfurter, he became him, channeling every misfit, every outcast, every person who'd ever felt too strange for the world. Without Curry, Rocky Horror might have been fun. With him, it became transcendent. Number 18. The corset that stopped production.
Sensor. Just dynamic tension. Let me show you.
Tim Curry's iconic corset wasn't just a costume, it was a torture device. The corset was laced so tightly Curry could barely breathe. Between takes, he'd have to be unlaced, gasping for air, struggling to recover. Studio lights made it worse. The heat, combined with restricted breathing, caused Curry to nearly pass out multiple times. Medical staff were on standby, but Curry refused to loosen it. He insisted Frankenfurter would cinch it tight, suffer for beauty, prioritize appearance over comfort. That commitment to character nearly killed him. During the Sweet Transvestite number, Curry danced, sang, and strutted for nearly 4 hours of filming. The corset cut into his ribs, bruised his torso, made every movement painful. By the end of the day, he had welts across his midsection that took weeks to heal. The costume designer, Sue Blaine, tried to create a more comfortable version. Curry rejected it. Wrong silhouette, wrong feeling, wrong Frank. He'd rather suffer than compromise. Cast members said watching Curry work was inspiring and disturbing. He'd perform brilliantly, then collapse between takes, ribs heaving, face pale. But when cameras rolled, pure electricity. That performance, that absolute commitment to discomfort for art, is what makes Frank-N-Furter unforgettable. Every strut, every pose, every moment came at physical cost, and Curry paid it gladly because some roles demand sacrifice, and Frank demanded everything. Number 17, The Castle That Was Falling Apart. Oakley Court, the Victorian mansion used for exterior shots, wasn't chosen for its beauty. It was chosen because it was cheap. The building was literally crumbling. Roof tiles fell during filming. Windows were broken. Walls showed cracks. The place had been abandoned for years, used occasionally for horror films because it looked appropriately creepy. Perfect for Rocky Horror's decrepit castle. But working there was dangerous. The production had to post safety monitors because structural integrity was questionable. During night shoots, parts of the facade would crumble, sending chunks of masonry crashing down. Crew members wore hard hats. Actors were told to move quickly through certain areas. The famous shot of Brad and Janet approaching the castle, they were genuinely nervous because the building might collapse. Rain made everything worse. Water damage had rotted support beams. When it rained during filming, which it did constantly, the crew would evacuate, fearing the whole structure might give way. Jim Sharman loved it. The danger added authenticity. The castle wasn't just set dressing, it was a real dying building. That decay shows on screen. When you watch Rocky Horror, you're seeing a house in its final days, weeks away from condemnation. After filming wrapped, Oakley Court was renovated and converted to a hotel. But during production, it was a legitimate hazard. Cast and crew joked they were making a movie inside a tomb. And in a film about creation and destruction, that felt appropriate. Number 16. Susan Sarandon's underwear became iconic, accidentally.
Here's the ring to prove that I'm no joker.
You are...
You're very lucky to be invited up to Frank's laboratory. Some people would give...
The white bra and slip Janet wears throughout the film wasn't planned. It was a costume malfunction turned cultural phenomenon. Originally, Susan Sarandon was supposed to wear a full outfit during the floor show sequence. But during rehearsals, the costume kept malfunctioning. Zippers broke, seams split, nothing worked properly. With filming scheduled and no time to fix it, costume designer Sue Blaine made a snap decision. Just put her in underwear. Simple, practical, easy. Sarandon was mortified. She was a serious actress trying to build a respectable career. Prancing around in her bra wasn't the plan. But Blaine convinced her. It's not gratuitous, she argued. It's vulnerable. Janet's been stripped down, literally and figuratively. Her innocence is gone. The underwear shows that. Reluctantly, Sarandon agreed, and the choice became iconic. That white bra and slip represented every good girl gone bad, every repressed person unleashed, every conformist discovering freedom. Audiences dressed as Janet for midnight showings, recreating that exact look. Thousands of women in white underwear screaming callbacks at screens worldwide. Sarandon later admitted she was wrong to resist. The vulnerability worked. Janet's transformation from buttoned-up prude to liberated woman needed that visual shift. Clothed to nearly naked, restrained to free. And it all happened because a zipper broke and nobody had time to fix it. Sometimes the best creative choices are accidents nobody planned. Number 15. Richard O'Brien's inspiration was personal.
I remember doing
It's not easy having a good time.
Richard O'Brien didn't just write Rocky Horror, he lived it. Growing up in New Zealand, O'Brien felt alien, wrong, out of place. He was obsessed with old horror films and rock music, two things that didn't mix in his conservative environment. He moved to London, struggled as an actor, felt like a permanent outsider. Rocky Horror became his therapy, his rebellion, his scream into the void. Frankenfurter wasn't just a character, he was every part of O'Brien that society told him to hide. The sexuality, the weirdness, the refusal to conform. O'Brien poured his isolation into Riff Raff, the servant who never belongs, who watches others have fun while he waits in shadows. That's autobiographical. O'Brien spent years watching life happen to other people, feeling like he was serving everyone else's story. Writing Rocky Horror was his way of taking control, making himself the protagonist of his own narrative. The show's themes, sexual liberation, gender fluidity, rejection of normalcy, weren't abstract concepts. They were O'Brien's life. Every lyric, every joke, every moment came from genuine experience and pain. When the stage show opened in London, O'Brien was terrified. He'd exposed himself completely, laid his soul bare. But audiences responded. They saw themselves in his outsiders, his misfits, his beautiful freaks. And O'Brien realized he wasn't alone after all. Rocky Horror succeeded because it was authentic, not a commentary on outsiders, but created by one. And that authenticity is why it still resonates 50 years later. Number 14. The film shot in 6 weeks on no money.
Don't get strung out by the way I look. Don't judge a book by its cover.
I'm glad we caught you at home. Could we use your phone? We're both in a bit of a hurry.
Rocky Horror had a budget of $1.2 million. For context, Jaws, released the same year, cost $9 million. The production was broke constantly. Props were borrowed or stolen. Costumes were made from thrift store finds. Sets were whatever they could afford or build cheaply. The famous throne Frank sits on, found in a warehouse, $50. The laboratory equipment, borrowed from a science museum with promises to return it undamaged. They didn't. Some props were literal garbage. The crew would raid dumpsters looking for anything usable. That aesthetic of theatrical cheapness wasn't artistic choice. It was financial necessity. But it worked. Rocky Horror looks deliberately artificial, like a stage show captured on film. The painted backdrops, the obvious sets, the theatrical lighting, all create a dreamlike unreality. If they had had more money, they might have made it look polished, realistic, expensive, and it would have lost its soul. The cheapness is the charm. It looks like Misfits made it in someone's basement, because essentially, they did. 6-week shooting schedule meant no time for perfection. They did 1 or 2 takes and moved on. Mistakes stayed in. Rough edges weren't smoothed, and that raw energy shows. Watching Rocky Horror feels like watching friends put on a show, not a corporate product. That authenticity came from poverty. The film succeeded because it looked like it was made by outsiders for outsiders, and no amount of money could buy that aesthetic. It had to be earned through struggle. Number 13. The callbacks that changed cinema forever.
Come up to the lab and see what's on the slab. I see you.
When Rocky Horror moved to midnight screenings, something unprecedented happened. Audiences started talking back, not heckling, participating. Someone would yell a joke during dialogue pauses. Others would laugh and repeat it at the next showing. Lines evolved, sharpened, spread from theater to theater. By 1977, callbacks were standardized. Thousands of people in hundreds of theaters yelling the same responses, creating a second script written by audiences. This had never happened before. Movies were watched in silence. Participation was forbidden. Rocky Horror smashed that rule completely. Theater owners hated it initially. They tried to stop it, enforce silence, kick out disruptive viewers. But the disruption was the attraction. People weren't coming to watch a movie, they were coming to perform one. The phenomenon grew. Audience members brought props, rice to throw during the wedding, newspapers for rain, toast for dinner. Shadow casts formed, fans dressing as characters and acting out the film in front of screens. Entire communities built around participatory viewing. This wasn't passive entertainment anymore. It was interactive performance art. Rocky Horror invented a new relationship between film and audience. Before, movies talked at you. Rocky Horror created conversation. That legacy extends beyond cult films. Modern quote-along screenings, sing-along versions, live-action adaptations, all trace back to Rocky Horror's audiences refusing to stay quiet. They taught cinema a lesson. Sometimes the audience is the show, and sometimes the audience knows what it needs better than filmmakers do. Number 12. Barry Bostwick's reaction to his career.
Say something.
Say! Do one of you guys know how to Madison?
Barry Bostwick played Brad Majors, the straight-laced everyman corrupted by Frank's world. When he took the role, Bostwick was a respected stage actor, Broadway veteran, serious performer. Rocky Horror was supposed to be a quick paycheck, a fun distraction, nothing career-defining. He had no idea what he was signing up for. When the film flopped initially, Bostwick felt relieved. Dodged a bullet, he thought. Back to serious work. Then midnight screenings happened, and Brad Majors became his defining role whether he wanted it or not. For decades, Bostwick couldn't escape it. Every job, every audition, every interview, people only wanted to discuss Rocky Horror. He tried to distance himself, take different roles, prove his range. Didn't matter. He was Brad forever. The transformation was frustrating. He'd trained for Shakespeare, performed classical theater, had legitimate technique, but audiences only cared about the nerdy guy in glasses getting seduced by a transsexual alien. Bostwick went through stages: denial, anger, reluctant acceptance, finally appreciation. He realized Rocky Horror gave him something rare: immortality. Most actors fade, most performances are forgotten, but 50 years later, fans still recognize him, still love Brad, still celebrate that role. Bostwick made peace with it eventually. He started attending conventions, engaging with fans, embracing the legacy, because fighting it was exhausting. And the fans weren't mocking him. They genuinely loved what he created. Brad Majors represented every person who stepped outside their comfort zone and found something unexpected. That's not a bad legacy to leave. Number 11, the famous pool. Scene almost didn't happen.
Enchanté. Well, nice.
The pool scene, Frank seducing Janet, is one of the film's most talked about sequences, but it nearly killed Susan Sarandon. The pool was unheated. Filming took place in winter. Water temperature was around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Sarandon had to be in that freezing water for hours, doing multiple takes, staying underwater, emerging dramatically. She developed hypothermia twice. Medics had to wrap her in blankets between takes, monitor her temperature, make sure she didn't go into shock. Tim Curry wasn't much better off. His makeup ran constantly, had to be reapplied repeatedly. The cold made him shake uncontrollably, ruining takes. But the worst part wasn't the temperature, it was the sanitation. The pool hadn't been properly cleaned. The water was filthy, chemical balance way off. Both actors developed ear infections, eye irritation, skin problems. Sarandon later joked she caught every infection known to science from that pool. Jim Sharman pushed them to continue. The scene was crucial, he insisted. The vulnerability, the intimacy, it had to be underwater, had to feel dreamlike and dangerous. So they suffered, take after take in that freezing, filthy pool. When you watch that scene, the discomfort is real. Sarandon's shivers aren't acting. Curry's urgency to finish isn't character choice. They're both trying to survive, and that authentic discomfort adds layers of meaning. Janet's corruption isn't comfortable or glamorous. It's uncomfortable, shocking, cold. Sometimes the best performances come from actual suffering, and that pool provided plenty. Number 10. Patricia Quinn's lips.
You've seen all kinds of movies, but you've never seen anything like the Rocky Horror.
That launched a franchise. The iconic lips in the opening, singing the first lines, belong to Patricia Quinn, except they don't. Not entirely. The lips are hers. The voice isn't. That's Richard O'Brien singing. Quinn recorded the opening number, but her version didn't match what O'Brien envisioned. Too sweet, too melodic. He wanted it stranger, more ambiguous. So, O'Brien sang it himself, and they kept Quinn's lips because they looked perfect, iconic, striking, unforgettable. Quinn didn't know about the switch until the premiere. She watched the opening, recognized her lips, heard a man's voice, felt betrayed. She'd been replaced without notification. It hurt deeply. She'd poured emotion into that recording, only to have it scrapped. For years, Quinn resented it. Interviews asking about the opening would make her tense. She'd correct people. Those are my lips, but not my voice. Make that clear. Eventually, she made peace with it. Those lips became the film's logo. Its most recognizable image. Movie posters, merchandise, tattoos. Everything featured those lips. Quinn's lips. That's a kind of immortality most actors never achieve. Her face, or part of it, became synonymous with an entire cultural movement. And while the voice might be O'Brien's, the visual impact, the sensual power of those lips, that's all Quinn. She gave Rocky Horror its face. And decades later, she finally appreciated that gift, because sometimes being seen is enough. The voice matters less than the image that endures forever. Number 9, the scene that made Meatloaf quit acting. Meatloaf played Eddie, the motorcycle rebel who bursts from a freezer. It was his first major film role. He was primarily a musician, touring with various bands, had some stage experience, but minimal film work. Rocky Horror was supposed to launch his acting career. Instead, it nearly ended it. The freezer scene was torture. Meatloaf was crammed into a tiny space for hours, frozen air blasting constantly. He's a big man, and that freezer wasn't designed for comfort. Between takes, he'd emerge shaking, blue-lipped, barely able to speak. But the real trauma came during Eddie's death scene. Frank kills Eddie with an ice pick, brutal and sudden. The choreography required Meatloaf to be lifted, dropped, manhandled violently. During one take, he was dropped wrong, landed hard, injured his leg. Filming continued. He was in genuine pain, limping, but production couldn't stop. They had schedules, budgets, no time for injuries. Meatloaf powered through, but something broke inside him, not physically, mentally. After Rocky Horror wrapped, he swore off acting for years. The experience was too harsh, too demanding, too dehumanizing. He focused on music instead, which led to Bat Out of Hell and massive success. He'd eventually return to acting decades later, but those early films scarred him. He later said Rocky Horror taught him music was his real calling. Acting felt like punishment. Music felt like freedom. So, in a weird way, Frank-N-Furter killing Eddie killed Meatloaf's acting career and birthed a rock legend instead. Number 8. The wedding scene used real props, stolen from churches.
Hey, Janet.
Yes, Brad.
I've got something to say.
The opening wedding scene needed authentic religious props. Crosses, hymnals, decorations, the works. But the budget couldn't afford rentals, so the prop master did what any desperate film crew would do. He stole them from actual churches. Late at night, he'd break into churches around London, take what he needed, leave before anyone noticed. Crosses from Catholic churches, Protestant hymnals, Anglican vestments, a true ecumenical heist. The crew knew and didn't ask questions. Plausible deniability. When filming wrapped, some props were returned quietly. Others weren't. They were broken, destroyed during filming, or simply lost. That church theft added authentic detail. The crosses look real because they are. The worn hymnals, the aged vestments, all genuine articles stolen from actual worship spaces. It's sacrilegious, fitting for a film celebrating transgression. Rocky Horror wasn't content offending modern sensibilities. It literally stole from God. Years later, when the prop master was asked about it, he laughed. Said he'd confessed to a priest eventually, received absolution. The priest had apparently seen Rocky Horror at a midnight showing, loved it, thought the theft was hilarious. Divine forgiveness for cinematic sacrilege. In a film about breaking every rule, stealing from churches felt appropriate. Frankenfurter would have approved. He didn't respect boundaries, sexual, social, or sacred. Why should? His film, every transgression was intentional, every offense calculated. Even the props came from forbidden places, blessed by institutions they'd later mock mercilessly. Number 7. The criminologists who wasn't supposed to be there.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
And crawling on the planet's face. Some insects.
Charles Gray played the criminologist narrator, but his role was massively expanded during filming. Originally, the narrator had maybe 10 lines, brief scene setting, nothing substantial. Gray was hired for 2 days of work, easy paycheck. But Jim Sharman loved his presence, his theatrical delivery, his knowing smirk. So he kept writing more narration, expanding the role, bringing Gray back repeatedly. Gray's schedule was full. He was performing in London theater, had commitments, couldn't keep returning. Sharman didn't care. He'd schedule shoots around Gray's availability, film whenever he was free. The production dragged on partly because they were chasing Gray's schedule. Other actors would wait while Sharman wrote new criminologist scenes, hoping Gray could film them. It became absurd. Gray found it hilarious. He was getting paid repeatedly for a role that kept growing. He'd show up, deliver whatever new monologue Sharman had written, collect another check, disappear back to theater. The result is the criminologist feels omnipresent, commenting constantly, framing everything. That wasn't planned. It evolved organically from Sharman's obsession with Gray's performance. And it worked. The criminologist grounds the insanity, provides context, offers the straight perspective that makes Frank's weirdness more striking. Without Gray's expanded role, Rocky Horror would be pure chaos. With him, it's chaos with a guide, madness with a map, and none of it was in the original script, just one director's refusal to let a good actor go. Number 6. The time warp that nearly destroyed them. All the time. Warp dance sequence, now iconic and beloved, was absolute hell to film. The choreography was complex, precise, exhausting. Every actor had to learn exact movements, hit exact marks, synchronize perfectly. Hours of rehearsal, days of drilling. By the time cameras rolled, everyone was already exhausted. Then filming began. Take after take after take. Small mistakes requiring complete restarts. Someone off rhythm? Start over. Lighting problem? Start over. Camera issue? Start over. They filmed that sequence for 3 straight days. 16-hour shooting days. The same dance, the same movements, the same song playing endlessly. Cast members later said they heard the music in their nightmares. Tim Curry's legs gave out multiple times. The heels, the choreography, the repetition, too much. Susan Sarandon developed blisters that bled through her shoes. Barry Bostwick pulled a muscle on day 2, had to finish while injured. The crew wasn't exempt. Camera operators, exhausted from tracking complex movements, made mistakes. Sound engineers, listening to the same song hundreds of times, started making errors from fatigue-induced. A madness. By day 3, everyone was delirious, punchy, laughing inappropriately, barely functional, but they got it. The version you see is take 70-something, assembled from multiple attempts, the best moments from days of suffering. And it looks effortless, joyful, fun. Nobody watching knows the pain behind those smiles, the exhaustion beneath that energy. The time warp nearly killed them, but they jumped to the left, stepped to the right, and somehow survived.
How'd you do, see you've met.
Number 5. The film that united outcasts. Globally, Rocky Horror didn't just find an audience, it created one. When midnight screenings took off, something remarkable happened. Gay kids found community, trans youth found representation, misfits found home. Week after week, the same people returned, not for the movie, but for each other. Theaters became safe spaces, sanctuaries from hostile worlds. In 1970s and 80s, Being openly queer was dangerous. Coming out meant losing everything: family, friends, safety. But inside Rocky Horror screenings, for 2 hours, you could be yourself, completely unapologetically, safely. People dressed in drag, explored gender, expressed sexuality, all protected by darkness and collective weirdness. Friendships formed, support networks developed, lives were saved. Multiple cast members and fans have said Rocky Horror literally kept them alive. When everything else felt hopeless, when suicide seemed inevitable, they had Friday midnight at the local theater. That community, that acceptance, that love pulled them back from the edge. The film became bigger than entertainment. It became lifeline, movement, revolution, not intentionally. Richard O'Brien didn't set out to create LGBTQ sanctuary, but he made something authentic enough that marginalized people recognized themselves and claimed it. Rocky Horror proved outcasts could build their own culture, their own spaces, their own rules. And 50 years later, that legacy continues. Kids still discover it, still find community, still realize they're not alone. Because Frankenfurter's message, "Don't dream it, be it," wasn't a lyric. It was permission. Permission to exist fully, unapologetically, proudly. And millions took that permission and ran with it. Number 4. The props that became traditions. Throwing rice at the wedding wasn't in the script. An audience member did it spontaneously at an early midnight showing. Others copied. It spread. Within months, every screening featured rice throwing. Then someone brought a newspaper for the rain scene. Umbrellas appeared, toast during dinner, playing cards for Frank's entrance, rubber gloves, toilet paper, confetti, every prop you can imagine. These traditions weren't organized or planned. They evolved organically, audience to audience, theater to theater. By the early 80s, the prop list was standardized. You could buy Rocky Horror survival kits with everything needed for participation. Theater owners hated it. The mess was incredible. After each screening, they'd find rice, toast, toilet paper, glitter everywhere. Cleaning took hours. Some theaters banned props entirely. That just made fans more determined. They'd sneak things in, throw items anyway, risk ejection for tradition. Other theaters embraced it, charged extra for prop bags, turned the mess into revenue. The props transformed passive viewing into active ritual. You weren't watching Rocky Horror. You were performing it, living it, becoming it. That participation created belonging, everyone doing the same weird things at the same weird times. Strangers united by synchronized toast throwing. It sounds absurd. It was absurd. That was the point. Normal life had too many rules, too many restrictions. Rocky Horror offered chaos, freedom, permission to be ridiculous. And throwing toast at a screen became an act of rebellion, small but meaningful. Because sometimes liberation looks like littering a theater with rice and toilet paper while screaming at a movie. Number 3. Tim Curry's performance that changed his life forever.
I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual.
No dissension. Just dynamic.
Tim Curry gave everything to Frankenfurter. The sexuality, the vulnerability, the absolute commitment to weirdness. But that performance cost him. For years afterward, Curry was typecast mercilessly. Every audition, every role, directors only saw Frank. They wanted that energy, that performance, that character again and again. Curry wanted range. He wanted to play villains, heroes, normal people. Nobody would let him. Casting directors would literally ask him to do the Frank voice, the Frank walk, the Frank attitude. It was suffocating. He'd created something so powerful it consumed him. His career suffered. Good roles went to other actors. He was too weird, too specific, too Frankenfurter. Curry fell into depression. He'd done his best work and was being punished for it. Slowly, he rebuilt. Voice acting gave him freedom. Playing villain roles, like Pennywise in It, showed his range. But he never escaped Frank's shadow completely. Even now, decades later, that's what people remember. Ask anyone about Tim Curry, they immediately mention Rocky Horror. It's his legacy, his curse, his gift. In recent years, Curry has made peace with it. Health issues have limited his work, but he still appears at Rocky Horror events when possible, and the love he receives is overwhelming. Fans don't see him as a relic or joke. They see him as an icon, someone who gave them permission to be themselves. That performance changed their lives, and gradually Curry realized it changed his too. Not how he expected, but meaningfully. He didn't just play a character, he became a symbol, and symbols live forever. Number 2. The studio that tried to bury their own film.
You've seen all kinds of movies, but you've never seen anything like the Rocky Horror.
20th Century Fox didn't believe in Rocky Horror. They financed it reluctantly, minimal budget, minimal faith. When it flopped theatrically, they were vindicated. See, we were right, trash that deserved to fail. But then, midnight screenings happened, cult following developed, and Fox had a problem. They owned a film generating passionate fan base, but no mainstream profit. Marketing departments didn't know what to do. How do you sell transgressive midnight madness to mainstream America? You don't. Fox tried ignoring it. Maybe it would fade. It didn't. It grew. More theaters, more cities, more fans. Finally, Fox realized they'd stumbled into something unprecedented. A film that failed normally, but succeeded abnormally. So they cautiously supported it, pressed more prints, authorized merchandise, allowed the phenomenon to continue. But they never truly embraced it. Corporate culture couldn't reconcile with Rocky Horror's values. The suits and the freaks, fundamentally incompatible. To this day, Fox treats Rocky Horror oddly. They profit from it, sure. Merchandise, streaming rights, anniversary editions. But they don't champion it like other properties. It's the weird stepchild, profitable but embarrassing. And fans prefer it that way. Rocky Horror belongs to audiences, not corporations. Fox may own the copyright, but they don't own its meaning, its culture, its soul. That belongs to the outcasts who kept it alive when Fox wanted it dead. Every midnight screening is a middle finger to the studio that didn't believe. Every callback, every prop throw, every shadow cast performance says we saved this, not you. And that's fitting. A film about rejecting authority, saved by fans who rejected the authority trying to kill it. Number 1. The tradition that won't die.
Oh, I just love success.
It's a credit to your genius, master.
Yes.
The triumph of your will.
I'm going home.
50 years later, Rocky Horror still plays in theaters. Every week, same screenings, same rituals, same insanity. It's the longest theatrical release in film history, and that record will likely never be broken. Streaming killed midnight movies. COVID killed gathering spaces. Modern culture killed weird. But Rocky Horror survives. Why? Because it's not about the film anymore. It's about community, tradition, belonging. Kids discover it, join the rituals, become part of something bigger. Every generation adds layers. New callbacks, new interpretations, new meanings. Frankenfurter means something different now than in 1975. More complex, more nuanced, more necessary. The film itself is dated. The production values look cheap. The jokes don't all land. But the spirit, the permission to be weird, to be yourself, to find your people, that's eternal. Rocky Horror taught generations that normal is a lie. Everyone's strange, everyone's scared, everyone's looking for acceptance. And if you can't find your people, create them. Make your own community, your own rules, your own midnight madness. That lesson transcends film. It's life philosophy. And it works because Rocky Horror proved it. A failed movie that refused to die, kept alive by people who refused to conform. That's more than cult classic status. That's cultural revolution. One midnight screening at a time. Every Friday, somewhere in the world, outcasts gather. They throw rice, they scream callbacks, they dance the time warp. And for 2 hours, they're home. That's Rocky Horror's real legacy. Not a film, a feeling. And feelings last forever. The Rocky Horror Picture Show died and came back stranger. 50 years later, midnight screenings still pack theaters with beautiful freaks who refuse to fade. Don't dream it, be it.